All right, guys, welcome into the second episode of the Celtics Power Hour. Back at it again, just a couple of days later, but we needed to find time in between that fourth preseason game and the start of the season to do another one. Even though we just jumped on it before the fourth preseason game. KJ Doyle with Ev Singleton, along with my ice cream truck that's outside my window right now, coming along for the ride. That literally, like, we even kind of delayed the start of this show for like 8 minutes, not like totally due to the fact that there was an ice cream truck blaring music outside of my window, but like hoping it would kind of go away. And
KJ,
it's
I joined right our call here, and I said to you, I was like, "What do you got? An ice cream truck playing in your room?" I thought you were watching a TikTok or something like that was just playing this music that you could shut off immediately, and you're like, "No, it's actually an ice cream truck right outside my window."
But why did you recognize that as ice cream truck music? Because to me,
Okay,
that sounds like the beat of "Get on the Floor" by Jennifer Lopez. So
that's
for a
wild.
while, I was like,
That's wild that you hear this. Hold on. Okay, it's actually kind of fading out. But you hear that sound and you say, "Oh, that's Jennifer Lopez." It's an ice cream truck through and through.
Hold on, wait a second.
If we get copyrighted for this, I'm gonna be
the
pissed.
night away, grab somebody, drink a little more. I don't know how much can I sing? Like, I don't know. That sounds like whatever. Okay, the point is,
I think that is an ice cream truck, not a Jennifer Lopez song. But,
all right, well,
maybe I'm the crazy one here.
All right, somehow ice cream truck savant Ev knew it was an ice cream truck right away, and must be hanging around a lot of ice cream trucks. I don't know. And so, yeah, it's been out there for 30 minutes, maybe 40 now going on. I don't know how long it's going to be out there. I'm honestly not kidding. I've had an ice cream truck outside of my window for hours before, like literal hours. It'll just sit there. And like, I'm like, it's only happened once. I don't know if this will be the second time today, but if you guys, if you guys are tuning in, just be, ice cream truck's gonna be here. So if we do get copyright claimed because of this ice cream truck, like the last time I was here, I don't know what else was going on that day, but I was so annoyed that I wanted to go outside and throw a rock through the ice cream truck that was there for so long. So I hope that doesn't happen today, but if we get copyright claimed because of this ice cream truck, I might have to do that next time I see it roll up.
I'll boycott ice cream forever, at least for a week, actually.
Yeah, not forever. I mean, so anyway, and I just checked before we went live, and it's the same people out there. So I don't even know if this ice cream man is even here. Like, I feel like they're just out there. They've been out there for 30 minutes. I feel like this ice cream man just left his truck and abandoned it somewhere. I don't know where he is now. But
I know where he is. He's right outside your window.
No, I'm saying the ice cream truck is there. I think the ice cream man.
Oh, you don't know where the guy is. The guy is.
Yeah,
right.
he left, and these people are just standing outside the truck. Well, like, well, maybe we'll show up eventually. We'll have to. I don't know. Anyway, Celtics.
I don't think it's that bad. So I hope everyone watching can kind of get that vibe too, because
yeah.
KJ, you were very much in the boat of, is this too bad? Like, do I need to fix my audio? And I said, let's just roll with it. So
that's 100%. This ice cream man is a Philly fan. I have to agree with you there, Lan. That has to be true. But guys, we are going to talk about the Celtics today. Believe it or not, we'll have some Celtics stuff to get into because the season starts in 2 days. I think literally pulling up by the time that this concludes, it'll be at the 48-hour mark exactly. So that this kind of marks that timing exactly. I see a lot of people in the chat just saying hi, hello as we get settled in here. But Ev, it's finally here. The long-awaited start. I don't know that anybody has been anticipating this season, preparing for this season more than you, honestly. So I mean, how incredible does it feel that it is just 2 days away that we're actually going to have the Celtics playing real basketball?
Are you referring to the fact that I was pulling Celtics content out of my during the Celtics offseason when there was nothing to talk about and we were pumping out daily content on the YouTube? Because I have been anticipating this moment. You are 100% right about that.
I mean, making all those videos like, Lauri Markkanen to the Celtics? Let's look at his highlights. Like, hey, maybe, Patrick Beverley?
Hey, that's good content. But honestly, I am so excited. And I will say this. I think this rivals the excitement this year. I mean, rivals the excitement I had when we first had, I hate to say his name, but the Kyrie and Gordon Hayward season. Like, I am so excited about this year. And it's funny because we don't have those. I mean, we do have offseason acquisitions. I'm not trying to diminish that, but we don't have this, like, oh, there's new, like, stars in town. No, there's just new blood in town. We have our stars. It's funny that, I am arguably more excited about this year compared to that year. And it's solely because, I guess, like the change we made in the offseason, the frustration of last year. But long story short, I am so amped about this season, like so amped.
Yeah, and I do think the acquisitions they made are going to play key roles. Maybe we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But just as far as what you're expecting from this season, I mean, give it to me after you saw the team preseason. And I know we didn't see them at full strength or anything like that. But, we saw how they played a little bit. We saw some of those new additions we were talking about. I mean, what's your confidence level at going into the season, and what do you expect to see from the team?
So, confidence level, I'll take that into two things, right? Confidence level, I need to see a couple things happen before I am super confident in this team. First off, I can't have an injury season like last year or a COVID year like last year. If that were to happen, it takes anything I say now and flushes down the toilet, right? So if we have a relatively healthy season and team, I am way more confident than I probably ever have been, I guess. Like, I'm thinking this team is a rivaling for that 2-spot, 3-spot, four spot floor type team, which I'm sure we'll get into sort of the long-term rankings, whatnot, later in the show. But so that's my confidence level. I'm very confident in this team. I think that it took the worst of the worst last year to be a play-in team, right? Like, the worst of the worst. People act like, oh, that was a bad Celtics season last year. That was the worst case scenario, and they were still a playoff team. So when I watched videos and reacted to them on the channel earlier in the offseason, and people are like, oh, I see this team, even with that, they lost Kemba, they lost Fournier, they're like a 10th seed. That's crazy to me because it took the worst case scenario last year to be a 7th seed. So there's only up from there. Like, that's at least the floor. So all of a sudden, I start parlaying that into the idea of, okay, well, if we even have a semi-successful year, that's got to be at least 2-3 spots ahead of where we finished last year, because that was worst case scenario. So I'm thinking at least a top half of the East seed team. That's the first part, if everything stays healthy, right? My expectations are that we do sort of ride, and that's how confident I am in the team, that first part. But my expectations, the second part of it, would be sort of more of that anywhere from a 2 to a 5 seed. So I think that the expectation could be a little bit more broad, but my confidence and sort of, if I am riding with the ship here and believing in it, I'm gonna ride with that first part and be like, I think this is a 2-3 seed.
And in theory, I mean, and I think the whole thing of 2-3 seed, one, even talking about, the high up near the top of the East, I think some people might consider that to be a little lofty. But in theory, I mean, why can't this team do what the Sixers did last year? Which was where the Sixers as good as...
This is one of my... I don't know if you're going to get into it. This is one of my favorite takes of yours, by the way. When you've said, like, all of a sudden it's like the Sixers just jumped us in the power rankings. Why not go into it? Because I've literally heard you say this a couple times, and it's by far one of, I think, your best things you ever said.
But were the Sixers as good as the Bucks last year? No. I mean, were the Sixers as good as the Nets? No. They weren't on the level of those teams. But what happened? I mean, they went from a disappointing season. They made a coaching change. They made a few tweaks on the fringes of the roster, but their best two players were the same guys they always were, Simmons and Embiid. And they went into the season and they won the most games, and they were the number 1 seed in the conference. And in the playoffs, they came around and they, choked against the Hawks. But why can't the Celtics be the best regular season team in the Eastern Conference like the Sixers were last year? Why can't they do that? They should have the talent to be able to accomplish that feat if everybody stays healthy. And if you get some situations across the league where the Bucks say, well, we're going to rest on our laurels a little bit. We're championship proven. We don't feel like we need the number 1 seed, as we've seen some teams take that approach in the past. Like, we can win as the 4 seed or the 3 seed. So maybe the Bucks take their foot off the gas in the regular season. The Nets obviously have no problem with kind of resting players and, getting kind of big heads at times. So the Nets certainly could be a team that says, we don't need the 1 seed. We're not going to go after that. So if you're the Celtics, you should be one of the teams that says, we're going to go after that. And I see no reason why the parallels between the Celtics team this year and the Sixers team last year can't hold true. Certainly don't want all of that. Like, I hope that the Celtics' second best player isn't trying to push his way out of town next season and it's back to Turmoilville. But just from the 1 season jump aspect of going from a 6-7 seed, which the Sixers and Celtics were, to the number 1 seed in the conference, that should be considered a possibility. It shouldn't be considered unrealistic. Does that mean they're going to be better than the Nets and better than the Bucks? No, it just means in the regular season, they will be ahead of those teams as they have been with LeBron James Cavaliers teams in the past and the like. So it's possible, and it should be on the table, certainly for this team.
To totally agree. I think that this is probably the synopsis I would give, or the summary that I'd give. I'd say that this team should be able to be a 3 seed, but then also compete with the Bucks and compete with the Nets. That's so far from me saying, oh, they're going to go and beat the Nets. They're going to go and beat the Bucks. But I think that people are crazy to look at this team and be like, oh, they can't even compete with these teams. Like last year, and again, I keep going back to last year. I get it's in the past. We're on to this year, but last year it took the worst of the worst to be what you were, like to end up how you did. So it's not hard for me to envision a team that is just even slightly better than last year, whereas I think they're going to be way better than last year, but even a slightly better team than last year puts us in this sort of expectation realm that we're talking about right now. Like, it took the worst of the worst to be the 7 seed. If this team can just simply do a little bit better than last year and stay a little bit healthier than last year, we're almost a shoo-in for the top half of the conference. And then if all things click, like I think we're kind of getting to here, and all of a sudden you are a good team. Tatum takes leap, Brown takes leap. Those are 2 guys that are still on your team. And then you have obviously the newcomers and your added depth and all that. It's like, well, if you're going to say that you're and we're just kind of using my hypothesis here as a path to go down. If you're going to say, oh, well, you're already a little bit better than last year, that means you're top half of the conference team. Well, if everything clicks, then what do you mean? Like, you're going to be a 4 seed. Like, if you're top half, you're 4 minimum. If everything clicks, you should be kind of like what I'm saying, a 3. Like, and maybe more, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that. But I think 3 should be sort of a shoo-in if everything clicks. Like, this team, top to bottom, is good enough if everything clicks.
And, a lot of people will push back on that. And I think a team that people really soon, we talk about the Sixers, and who knows what's going to happen with that team this season. It seems like it's a train wreck waiting to happen. But one team that people do put ahead of the Celtics pretty regularly, I think now, is the Miami Heat. And you look at the Heat roster, and what do they do this offseason? They basically they brought in PJ Tucker, and they bring in the big one, obviously, was Kyle Lowry, right? They signed Kyle Lowry to this big contract, and everybody thinks, oh, Kyle Lowry's going to come in, and he's going to make the Heat a championship contender. And I look at it, and I'm like, Kyle Lowry's getting kind of long in the tooth. He's 35 years old right now, going to turn 36 in the middle of next season. And honestly, like, I mean, he's okay now. He's still, is an all-star caliber player, I guess, right on the fringes there. But, in the last couple seasons, his scoring average has dipped. He hasn't been over 20 in a while. I mean, he's drawing charges. But last year, shot 39.2 or 39.6% from 3, so it jumped up considerably. But the season before that, he was right around 35 and 34%. So it was like, I mean, was that a contract year thing, or was that Kyle Lowry? And I wonder, I don't know. I don't want to, I just wonder when that cliff's coming for Lowry. And I wonder if maybe that was a little bit of, hey, let me play really well to get my last contract, and then I can take my foot off the gas a little bit. I don't know. I'm not going to put that on Lowry, but hey, he's a guy that's already won his championship, so it's not like he needs to go ring chase anywhere exactly, even if he does want to win another one with the Heat. So I think the Kyle Lowry acquisition by Miami is being a little bit overrated by some people. I don't think he transforms them into a championship contender. I still think they're very clearly behind the Bucks. I think they're very clearly behind the Nets. It's not close. And I think them and the Celtics are kind of still mostly a toss-up. Could go either way. I might give the slight edge to the Heat, I suppose, since they have three guys I would consider near all-star level in Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and Kyle Lowry, but I'm not sold on it. I think that at the end of the day, at the end of this season, if you're drafting that series, there's a really good chance that the two best players in that series are both on the Celtics. So
Yeah.
I am not as convinced that the Miami Heat are a juggernaut destined for the NBA Finals as everyone else is. And I'm not saying anybody's going that far, but just in terms of comparing them to the Celtics, I'm not giving them as much credence there as others would.
I give them. Oh man, does this not bring flashbacks to when we did the show? I think we were previewing like the series, the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was like a. I don't even know when it was, but we were talking about how much we believe in this Heat team.
Yeah,
And
this must have been
the
game
bubble that was
one, right?
yeah, it
It
must
was
have been
bubble
before
game
that.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
something like
so
that.
to me, I do believe in the Heat, but that's kind of when I say 3-4 sort of flip back and forth. That is the team that I'm picturing on the other side, right? It's not. I'm not thinking, oh, the Celtics are going to be the 3, and then the Sixers are going to be the 4, or the Celtics will be the 4, and then the Sixers are going to be the 3. No, it's to me, it is the Heat, and then on the other side of it is the Celtics. No matter who finishes where. I do agree with your Kyle Lowry take. Like, I think that a step up from Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo getting better does way more for that team than just adding a Kyle Lowry. Whereas, or in the same vein, that when that team sort of hit its stride and went to the finals a couple years ago, like Goran Dragic was doing a lot of the stuff that you just see Kyle Lowry do anyways. So maybe we could say that the step up was that. I guess Kyle Lowry's going to be a more he's going to be a guy that plays like Goran did when Goran was playing well. Kyle Lowry will be a little bit more consistent. So I do think that they got better, but I think that they got better in the same vein as the Celtics getting better. You said that if these two teams were to go head to head, the Celtics have the best two players in the series. I think that that's like. This probably is the homer in me, but I think that is a shoo-in as a fact. Like, I think Jaylen Brown, if you're drafting teams right now, and it's a completely fantasy draft, whatever. I think like Jaylen Brown, if you're trying to build a team, should go before Bam or should go before Jimmy. Like, maybe not in this moment. Jimmy Butler is or Jaylen Brown's better than Jimmy Butler type of thing. Like, I think Jimmy does a lot of stuff that Jaylen, or a lot of stuff better than Jaylen. But overall, like Jaylen Brown, I think, by a year's time, meaning end of this season, will be probably more valuable to the Celtics than Jimmy Butler is to the Heat. And again, I could totally be, hand up saying I'm being biased about that, but I think that we saw like what Jaylen Brown can do last year. We've seen what he can do even when he played that one preseason game and went off. Like I don't have any problem saying that the Celtics have the two best players in that series, except that the Heat might have the 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? Like they might get there. And I think I saw it in the chat earlier. Or go ahead.
I was just gonna. I mean, that's a given. I mean, we're saying the Celtics have the best two, the Heat. I think you have to say they have the best 3, 4, 5. After that,
But
6,
even I'm going beyond that, I guess. Because then you have Bam, Lowry. Jimmy Butler would be 3, 4, 5, right? Then you go Hero, Duncan Robinson. Like, those are two guys that I'd rather over so many guys in the Celtics. So I think that might be but again, that's why we're splitting hairs, right? Like, that's why this is a series if they were to play. So for us to say, 3 seed Celtics, Heat seed 4, or 4 seed Heat, or vice versa, like, I think that's totally valid.
And because who knows? Maybe the Heat are like one of those veteran teams that kind of decides, you know what, let's save our guys for the playoffs and don't really go for it in the regular season. So they could easily take that approach too. I don't think the Celtics consider themselves a team that can afford to take that approach. And I don't want to write the Sixers off either. I mean, look, I think they're a mess right now, and who knows what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. But if anybody can embrace that kind of, FU kind of season attitude, maybe it is the Sixers. It's like
I think Embiid could embody that and just like put it on his shoulders and play like it's true.
And they still have a talented roster around them. They have the shooting with Seth Curry, and the defense. Matisse Thybulle brings to the table. Tobias Harris, a good secondary scorer. So I don't know. I wouldn't write them off either. Maybe they could be a good team, but right now it definitely looks ugly. I see people dropping so many things in the chat. I'll go to Jimmy J's comment first, because I think at one point talking about the Heat, and he was saying that the Celtics can't stop Tyler Hero and or Bam right now, and that's why he thinks that the Celtics are. He's saying Miami owns us, and then saying we can't stop Bam or Hero. I just want to tell you, Ev, real quick. Tyler Hero's stats against the Celtics last season: 14.7 points per game, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, which is about what his averages were. Few less in the assist column, few more in the rebounds column than he usually averaged. Bam Adebayo last year averaged 19, 9, and 5.5 against the Celtics. He averaged 19, 7, and 6. So
I will say Hero last year I think is different than Hero this year. I think Tyler and I Tyler Hero is the type of guy when he's in the other team, he just has a punchable face. Like you don't want to like him and whatnot. I think he is going to be really, really good. And I think he showed that in that preseason game too. Like if he gets cooking, he's cooking with fire. You know what I mean? Like he gets going. But I think to counter sort of Jimmy's point, and again, this is all I guess based on whether or not this team has everything that they can go to war with, right? Like if anyone's out, even like a Dennis Schroeder or a Josh Richardson, anything like that, then all of a sudden, like I do think the Heat have an upper hand on you, and it goes the same way on the other side. Like if they're missing a Duncan Robinson or something like that, like obviously it's a big miss. But I will say that you could say that we can't stop Bam or we can't stop Tyler Hero. There's no one on the Heat that truly can stop Jason Tatum. And then whoever they're gonna put on Jason Tatum to stop him, there's no one that can stop Jaylen Brown. You know what I mean? Like you can. That's why I do think like this is a sort of, these are two teams that are absolutely splitting hairs here, because I would not be surprised either way who ends up the 3 or 4 seed. And you mentioned the Sixers, KJ. Honestly, I could throw. I'm a little bit lower than I think most people on the Sixer, I guess, but I could throw them into the same conversation. I would not be shocked if they were the 4 seed and the Celtics were the 3 and the Heat were the 5, or the Celtics were the 5 and the other 2 swap. You know what I mean? Like these are two teams that in the last give me the last 2 or 3 years have followed a similar sort of trajectory in terms of how much better they've gotten and what they've done to get better, I guess. And I think that it's right now, if you were to put a gun to my head, I would go Heat, Celtics, Sixers for that 3, 4, 5 spot. Heat, Celtics, Sixers for that 3, 4, 5 spot. But best case scenario, and that means everything's clicking, I think the Celtics have the top end talent. And so to counter Jimmy's point there, I guess, is that, if everything clicks for all 3 of these teams, I think the Celtics are the 3 seed, because I think the top end talent is unmatched compared to the 2. If Ben Simmons was happy and he was ready to play and he was, working on his shooting, whatever, then who knows? Maybe you could say Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are definitely a better 1-2 combo, because, they both have that star power name. But this is a Sixers team that could be without him. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't tell me Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, who is also a really good player. I like him, but like they're not better than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as a duo.
Yeah, and there's another good team that I think probably should be in this group that we haven't brought up, which is the Bulls, as people are saying in the chat. I mean, the Bulls got a lot better, but it's just hard to know what that team is going to look like when they get all on the floor together. Like, is a combination of Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and DeMar DeRozan going to work? I mean, it seems like just a mix of players that smart people in the NBA hate. Like it's like all these guys that DeMar DeRozan loves the mid-range, and Nikola Vucevic is pretty good as a stretch big, but he's not very good defensively. And Zach LaVine took a lot of big steps last season, certainly, and made the All-Star team, and people started to say he started to play better defense and all this stuff. But once Vucevic got there, that team didn't work for some reason. They weren't winning games, except when they played the Celtics. But, and then Lonzo Ball, you throw on top of that, this guy who's the second overall pick who hasn't really lived up to his pick. The guy who got picked behind him actually ended up being maybe a little bit better than he is. So
who's that? I forget who that was.
I think his name. I think he's some guy with number 0 somewhere. I forget. It's right at the tip of my tongue, but I can't.
I can't think of it either.
Yeah, no, but Lonzo.
Thank God for LeVar Ball.
Yeah, it seems like with the way that this is kind of all shaping up for the Bulls, like they should be one of those teams that doesn't quite work. But I want to see it. They have a lot of talent, so if it's just
You think they shouldn't quite? What do you mean they shouldn't quite work based on the way those guys should mesh?
yeah, it just doesn't seem like that's a team that would all fit together. Like think of like I said, they have a lot of talent, but I just don't know. I don't think it'll work. Like they not that they remind me totally of this team, but you remember the Lakers when they got Steve Nash and Dwight Howard. So you have Steve Nash as this kind of pass first point guard like Lonzo Ball a little bit. Obviously, Steve Nash Hall of Famer, but at that point a little bit older. Dwight Howard and bringing in Kobe and having Kobe Bryant there as well, Pau Gasol. So they bring in all these really talented guys that they have around those guys, and it should work, and they should be really good. And they just
those guys were a little bit past, I think, like the growing period of their career, though, right?
Right. I mean, Kobe Bryant was still at the tail end of his prime, still really good, and Dwight Howard.
No, I just mean growing together. Like we could, and I think we're talking about this year, so you could be totally right, but I could totally see, in 2 years, and Levine might not be there, that type of thing. That may be my only caveat to what you're saying, is that these guys are still in this sort of the young enough rate. Maybe you might not throw DeRozan in that, I guess, or Vucevic.
Right. Yeah. Those
but I
two,
think still more than like than a Nash and Howard. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't. I would give a little. I like the
I don't
comparison.
know. I'm just saying in terms of the type of players they're bringing in. Like I'm not saying that these guys are exact comparisons to those guys at all. I'm just saying that when you bring in a bunch of talent, it doesn't always necessarily translate to wins. Sometimes it's just not the right team with not the right play styles. And that's what I mean. It's like, okay, great. You have all those guys on the floor together. How are they going to share the ball? Is it just like Lonzo Ball setting everybody up all the time? Like, is it your turn, my turn? Like, how is this going to work? How does Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan play together? How do they, how does Lonzo Ball fit into there? How does Nikola Vucevic fit into there? Like, I want to see how it all works. I think, honestly, a team like that has so many kind of weird pieces. Like DeMar DeRozan's good, but he's a weird player.
He is a weird sort of like fit into an offense, yeah.
And Zach LaVine's a weird sort of player, and even Vucevic is, and certainly Lonzo Ball is. So it's like all of them have weird little quirky things that it's like I think you would need the perfect coach there to kind of work it all out. But I'll throw them in the mix. I think they went out this offseason and they brought in Ball and DeRozan for a reason, and I'll give them a mulligan on the Vucevic thing, and let's see how it looks this year, because it didn't work out the way they wanted it to last year. But hey, I'll give it to you, and maybe it'll get better this time around. But we'll see. I am not totally sold, but I'm intrigued for sure.
I think that's a decent way to put it. Intrigued. Like I've seen the Bulls look pretty good, but then also everything you said and the way that they like. It's not a knock on the Bulls in terms of my belief level on them, right? Like, I think that it's more of a pumping air in the tires of the teams ahead of them. Like, I still see a little bit of a gap between the Bulls and the Sixers, Celtics, Heat, Nets, and Bucks. I could be proven wrong, but I don't think adding a Lonzo Ball or adding a DeRozan to their team is like, oh, well, guess what? Now we're in the conversation for, the Eastern Conference Finals. I think those are really, really good additions and better additions than some of the additions the Celtics made, obviously. But I still think that, to your point, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right way to put it, but the Bulls very much threw it at the wall and they're hoping to see what sticks, right? Like you wouldn't tell me that LaVine and DeRozan in any world could play off one another, but who knows? Maybe they will. They play two completely different games. DeMar DeRozan in his first couple years would play better than a Zach LaVine would now. You know what I mean? Like a run and gun, they can be high flying. DeMar DeRozan's a way different player, and so is Zach LaVine. So we'll see. I'm not low on the Bulls. I really am not low on the Bulls, but I don't put them in that upper echelon category. But I will throw in, I don't know if this is covering my basis, I wouldn't be surprised if they are. Like they're on like the fence there, but I'm not I'm not locking them to that.
I mean, look, certainly this is better than doing nothing, right? Like I'm not gonna say like you shouldn't have signed DeMar DeRozan.
Oh my God, the Bulls did.
You should have done this.
If I was a Bulls fan, I'd be pumped. They went out and did their job, right? Like they tried to 100%.
They got star level players, at least with DeRozan and Vucevic, and Lonzo Ball's a big name. At least he can do is a starter level player. So they got them at names, but I just we'll see if it all works together. beggars can't be choosers, and the Bulls were kind of beggars, so they took what they could get, and we'll see if it works out for them.
Yeah.
A team we haven't mentioned yet, which I do feel like we're being a little disrespectful about, the Hawks. It's just you. It's you trying to say this was an Eastern Conference finalist last year. We both, don't mention them at all in this conversation. I mean, look, I respect what the Hawks did last year, and hey,
overrated.
Do I respect it? I don't know. Maybe
overrated.
A strong word. Sure, the Hawks. All right, go for it. You want to say they're overrated? Go for it.
That's it. I don't need the floor. That's my floor. Overrated. And guess what? This is another thing. If they go and do it, then I'll say, okay, I was wrong. But give me at least 2 seasons of this Hawks success before people start flying the Hawks flag in the NBA. Right. That was one good year.
So they beat a Sixers team that choked, and they beat a Knicks team that I don't think either of us think is going to be that good anyway. So
that Knicks team choked too. Julius Randle was the only guy that even tried, I guess, and he didn't play well.
So I just think that the Hawks last year were supposed to be like a 7 seed, and they overachieved a little, and I think they'll regress. I will say
Trae Young, I think he shut people up. And that's not just tied to the New York stay quiet type of gif and whatnot, move that he did. Yeah. He's legit. I don't think that their team around him is as good as they played in the playoffs.
And I think it's a disgrace that Trae Young wasn't an All-Star last year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So
he is so filthy.
I think that if you said the same thing about the Celtics, and some people did, that the Celtics were going to be a 7 seed last year, people would have said, what are you talking about? Because they were just in the Eastern Conference Finals. And, hey, we were wrong, and the Celtics were a 7 seed. So I think that the same thing could happen to the Hawks this year. They could take a big step back.
The Hawks, Knicks, and Bulls are in the same. So you know how I put the Heat, Sixers, and Celtics in the same sort of realm? Mm-hmm. The Hawks and the Heat. No, sorry, the Hawks, the Knicks, and the Bulls are in that same sort of. I'll tell you right now, I don't think they're going to be as good as people think, but they are the 3 teams that I could at the end of the year be like, yeah, I was totally wrong about that. And I wouldn't be surprised that I'm saying that. But I don't.
That's a good
I'm
tier.
Not sold.
I feel like Hawks, Knicks, Bulls. Then you have the Celtics, Heat, kind of in there. Sixers, that's a tier, and then Bucks and Nets, I think, are a tier in of themselves. So I think those. Probably fair to say those are 8 playoff teams in the East, right? Unless you want to throw someone else in there. I mean, Toronto's kind of interesting to me, but without Lowry, I don't know. I still think, hey, with Siakam and Van Fleet, that's okay. And you get the, you're rookie there. But I don't know. I think those 8 are probably a solid 8 if we want to leave it at that.
Before we get another chat, I want to give a shout out to my guy B Smooth checking in here. Be Smooth, I joined his fantasy draft too. We'll see how we do. I think KJ, we've been in fantasy leagues together. Yeah. I am infamous for forgetting that fantasy league exists. I guess basketball is tough. Basketball fantasy is tough, but shout out to my guy, Be Smooth.
Yeah, it is really tough because you have to always kind of you have to check it every day versus fantasy football, which is once a week, maybe twice a week, whatever. So it's tough. Any news on Jalen's status from Birkin? I haven't seen anything yet. So, I mean, Ime Udoka said the last thing we heard was about that he should be ready, but we haven't really heard anything since then. So, but that's going to be kind of big for the opener. It's funny because I think for so many years, the Celtics have had this game early in the season against the Knicks, right? It seems like they always have one in the first 4 games against the Knicks. And it always feels the Knicks game should be an easy win. You pencil it as a W. And who cares, really, right? But this year, it kind of sneaks up on you. You're like, okay, we opened season against the Knicks, whatever, nothing game. But this is actually kind of an intriguing opener because the Knicks were kind of good last year, and now they have Kemba and Fournier who are coming back.
Kind of an intriguing. They got Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. This isn't intriguing as you know what opener.
I don't know. Maybe you guys can say in the chat, but it snuck up on me a little bit. I understood things of Kemba and Fournier come back and all that stuff and facing their older team or whatever. But to me, it was just I don't know. To me, it's just visually speaking. I saw the Knicks and I'm like, oh, yeah, the token Knicks game earlier in the season, whatever. And I kind of thought past it, even though the Fournier stuff and the Kemba stuff was still somewhat took out of my mind. But now that we're actually here and we're just, days away at this point, I'm looking at it and I'm saying this is actually a bad opening game. This kind of has some juice to it,
There's a huge juice to it. I think it didn't sneak up on me, but I will give you credit in the sense of that happens every single year. It's we're playing, maybe this is When did what was it like it was early in the year last year, that ridiculously, maybe it wasn't that early now that I'm thinking about it, but the ridiculously bad Sunday afternoon loss to the Knicks last year, right? I think it was Kemba's first game back. It was like the 11th or 12th game. I don't know, whatever. That's the type of game that sneaks up on you. Like, it's like, oh, we're playing the Knicks Sunday afternoon. Should be good basketball regardless. And all of a sudden it's like, no, they just kicked your doors in and told you to go home. This opening night, maybe I can say that it hasn't snuck up on me because I've been looking forward to the season so much, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, seeing Kemba against the Celtics, the one thing, and just on the Kemba note, it kind of took the air out of the sails or wind out of the sails, whatever the heck the saying is Jason Tatum saying Kemba's like one of the best teammates he ever had. That, like, I wanted bad blood for this. Like, I wanted sort of like a and though Kemba Walker isn't the prototypical, oh, like, you know, Kyrie, I guess, esque type of matchup, like bad blood with Boston, I wanted that sort of like, you know, you didn't work out here. Same with Fournier. Jason Tatum being a guy he's one of the best teammates I ever had kind of takes wind out of those sails. But I will say, seeing Fournier walk and go there, and then seeing Kemba play there, it's like there is my cup is overflowing with juice, KJ. Like I'm trying to sip the juice before it keeps pulling over. Like, because I think there's juice to this game. I think that you know, I want the win, but this is the type of game that I think the Celtics should 1,000,000% win. But if if I'm sitting on the post game Wednesday night with a Knicks win, I wouldn't be that like shocked. I think that the Knicks are a team that are a little bit overrated, but anyone can win in that type of ball game type team. Like, the Knicks can beat anybody. They're in that category. And I don't know. I guess to the original point, I'm going off on a tangent here. I think the original point, there's juice to this game, and I'm juiced up about this game. Like, I think that this is a big time game for the Celtics, because if they lose, all of a sudden you're second guessing how good this team is. If they win, the Knicks are good enough that when the Celtics win, it's going to be this is a real season. Like, this team is legit. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and I think Birkin saying in the chat he thinks it'll be a 20-0 start for the Celtics. Birkin, I'm sure he thinks Romeo Langford is going to score all those
20-0 start to the season, or 20-point start.
I don't know. Let's just stick with 20 points because we're talking about the game.
Birkin says a lot of crazy stuff, but Birkin has been saying Romeo's going to be good for 3 years. Now Romeo's good, so I have to believe him.
Romeo's going to score all the 20 of those points, or at the very least, he hit all 20 game winners if he's talking about record. I think Jay's talking in the chat about who the starting center is going to be, because presumably it will be Cantor if Robert Williams and Al Horford are both unable to play. Rob due to injury and Al due to COVID restrictions. Al, supposedly it's supposed to be close. We still haven't heard any word on that, but it's supposed to be somewhat still up in the air that he maybe could come back for that opener. Robert Williams, who knows? It feels like we're always have so many question marks about Robert Williams and what his status is and how that's going to all work. But Ev, if you want to play into the juice factor, I mean, he said Enes Kanter returning to the Garden. Enes had some fun in New York while he was there too. So if this becomes a theatrical display with Kemba and Fournier and all these guys, then certainly go ahead and throw Enes Kanter's name in there, because he'll play up to a frenzy like crowd. And I just imagine, Madison Square Garden in the opener is going to be probably pretty electric, because this is really the first season that Knicks fans have probably felt optimistic heading into the year in like almost a decade, although maybe a little bit less than that, but it's been a while, so it's
totally rightfully so.
Yeah,
like if I was in a Knicks fan's shoes, I'm thinking, oh wow, let's go. Like,
right,
it's almost an uncomfortably like, whoa, I don't really get what's going on here. Like, someone our general age probably doesn't get it.
Yeah, you feel like you have a star in Julius Randle, and you feel like you have an emerging star in RJ Barrett. So you got to feel pretty good about yourself, and you feel like, hey, Kemba Walker, who knows what he could be. So they got to feel pretty good about that, I suppose. And we'll see if they're able to do that, but and able to kind of, beat the Celtics. Do we have a line on that game, by the way? I don't know if you can check that today. There's got to be betting lines out for that game already, hasn't there? Because I would assume the Celtics are favored, but the Knicks are at home. They were a higher seed last year. Both teams, I would say, both teams, I think, improved this offseason personally, but maybe Vegas doesn't think so. Maybe they think the Celtics got worse.
Celtics underdogs +1.
All right, so it's basically
Hammer the chat. Hammer that.
Celtics +1, not a bad pick to me. I mean, that looks pretty
Wow.
good. So, a lot of it depends on if Jalen plays and everything like that too. But hey, it doesn't look too bad.
Put a
certainly.
mortgage payment on that responsibly.
All right. Last, or not last thing, but next thing I want to get into a little bit is the schedule because someone mentioned it. Jimmy J saying they have a tough schedule. I think they have a pretty easy schedule to start. Honestly, I don't know if you've taken a quick look
agree.
at it.
I agree.
I mean, if you look at it, I think in their first 12 games, there's only about. I mean, it gets pretty tough at the back half of that, but or 14, I mean, rather. But okay, let's just go through it real quick. Just give me win or loss. All right, how about that?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Sure, let's do win or loss. But while you're doing that, I'm going to count up how many easy games I think they have. Okay, Knicks.
Win. Not easy game, though, right? I don't have to do that, right? You got that? You got the easy game part?
Yeah,
okay,
I got that. Raptors.
Go. Win.
Rockets.
Win.
Hornets.
Should be a win, but after 3 wins, that's almost like I'll go win based on statistics. But there's going to be a trap game in here somewhere. But
Wizards.
Win.
Wizards.
That's a loss. It just has to be back-to-back nights against a bad team.
Actually, you have a few days off in between. You have 2 days off in between.
3 days off. Okay, then win. Yeah.
Yeah, you got 2 in there, the 20th, 29th, and then you got the
2 days in between. But, okay, gotcha. Yeah, win.
And that changed your mind? No, I'm just kidding. All right.
It did.
All right. The Bulls on the 1st.
Win.
Magic.
Win. I'm jinxing the hell out of this team right now.
Heat and Mavericks.
Loss.
So let's forget the Heat and Mavericks. You have them at 7-1 to start the season. Is what we'll cut it off at. So 7-1. And by the way, after that Heat Mavericks, they go Raptors, Bucks, Cavs. Okay, so I mean, not bad to start the year, really. I think in your first 14 games, if I had to count them, at least, I mean, I would say up as many as 7 or 8 of those are easy, really. If we just want to go the first 8.
Well, KJ, think about it. The ones that I even said lost to, like I hesitated with the Hornets, hesitated with the Wizards second game. It's like those are still easy. They should be, right? Easy games.
Your toughest games are those middle-of-the-pack teams, which are Hornets, Knicks, Bulls. Like, those are your toughest games.
And the only reason we're saying that it could be a loss is because, you've won so many games before that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not – you look at that game in a vacuum, and it's like, yeah, they win that.
And guess what? The Heat and the Mavericks, like, we're saying loss because, all right, now, and you know why you're saying loss? Because you're like, all right, well, now that's a good team. Yeah. But it's not a great team. No. You know, it's not like I'm talking about we think that the Celtics are on the level of the Heat and the Mavericks. So, like, you're finally like, all right, there's the loss. I've been waiting for it. But it's like, those games are winnable too. So
that had more to do with the fact that I just said win.
Yeah.
And got to that point where I was like, well, buddy, I better start saying loss at some point. So that's more like if you look at each of these games in a vacuum, they're all winnable.
If you look at those that's not breaking news. First 14 games, they could easily be 10-4, 11-3. Like that's not unrealistic. Like I'll put it somewhere in the 9 to 11 wins range, but I honestly think that's stretch they could go on. It gets tough after that. Okay, yeah, I mean it bounces back and forth, but in 3 of the next 5 games, you got Hawks, Lakers, Nets. So that's tough. Kind of easy with Thunder and the Rockets in between there. Spurs, Raptors again, Sixers, Jazz, Trailblazers, Lakers. It gets really tough. That's the toughest part of their schedule. They really need to do really well early because once December rolls around, it gets tough. They start December home against the Sixers. Then you have your longest road trip of the season. The Jazz,
I'm looking at this now.
The Lakers, the Clippers, the Suns. Then you finally come home to the waiting arms of the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending NBA champions.
Yeah.
And then you got the Warriors and the Knicks and the Sixers. Okay? So now all of a sudden you look at this side of the schedule and you say, I know if you're running through these games and you finally see the Knicks game and you're like, finally a win. Whereas before we were like, the Knicks game on that other side of the schedule, that looks like a tough game compared to everyone else. Now it looks like an easy game compared to all the other ones you played. So the Celtics, as much as we say, hey, it should be an easy start there,
I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to start. They play the most like back-to-back. I saw a stat. They play the something like most back-to-backs or something like that again, which I thought that was the case last year. Like I'm a dummy when it comes to the scheduling of back-to-backs and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that they're in the top of the league of back-to-backs. And then it's like,
Yeah.
again, they're doing that again. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of wild. But
Yeah, and guess
to
what? In that stretch I just mentioned, 3 back-to-backs. Jazz, Trailblazers, both road games back-to-back.
So are
Lakers,
we proving
Clippers,
Jimmy J's
both road
comment
games
right?
back-to-back.
Because we're talking about
You
the
know,
start of the season. Are we now? Are we started to respond to that comment saying that we disagreed, but as we get deeper into the schedule, now I'm starting to kind of flip back, right?
well, look, I think this, and I mentioned it when the schedule got released. This is the toughest part of the schedule, so I'm not gonna read too much into that. I think
Right.
that there's
Who
reasons to
knows
be
what could be the
encouraged.
case at that point, anyways.
Right, and if you get off to a hot start and you're playing with confidence, then hey, going to play the Blazers, on December 4th, or the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, and then the Suns, coming off, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit down as still after their championship run. Maybe they come back down to earth. I don't know. The point being that getting off to a hot start is important no matter what way you look at it, whether it's to carry that momentum into this stretch of games or to give yourself that cushion so that once you get to this stretch, it doesn't totally derail your season. So I think that there's still reasons to feel like, especially with how the schedule starts, like that could really help the team. And I think that's the part to focus on right now. We can look at the whole schedule like I don't know. It's going to be the same schedule that pretty much every team in the Eastern Conference has. So like
Yeah.
they have a tough schedule. It doesn't work the same way that it does in football, where you're playing different divisions and stuff like this works. Like you mostly play the same schedule as everybody else. Your back-to-backs might be different and all this stuff and that. But the fact that they have an easy start is actually something that is going to, I think, help them in the long run.
I totally agree. I do. I just thought of something. I don't know why I thought of it, but I will say we're bouncing between chat and whatnot right now too, guys. If you do want us to get to your question and want us to make sure that we get to it, you can send it as a super chat. It's a way that we'll answer your question and also sort of jump to the front of the chat line. We'll answer your question as soon as it comes up, type of thing. And on the topic of super chat, I don't know if anyone tunes in. You guys should if you haven't, but tune into the yeah, it has to be the Patriots post game show. I know this is a Celtics show that we're doing here, but KJ here on my right. This is my right. I don't know what he is on you guys. I guess he's on my left. For you guys, KJ had a super chat war going on last night where there was a Cowboys fan in there that came in simply just to brag. So he was giving KJ money to host a show. And then we had a couple Patriots fans competing with him, but essence of the story, and KJ did break numbers on super chat. I think had to have. He almost broke YouTube with the amount of super chats he was getting. But if you guys do want us to answer your questions, make sure to drop a super chat. It supports the show. KJ and I are going to be here doing this every single week, and definitely drop a super chat if you guys do feel generous and you want us to get to your question, because I see a lot of chat piling up. And you get two mouths. You get two mouths like me and you back and forth. It's tough to keep up with chat. Like me and you can both talk.
If we don't get to your comments, so we're trying to get to as many as we can. It's funny when we plan this show, we're like, all right, what do we want to talk about? We mentioned like a couple things, and then we're like, we don't need it much. Like the chat's gonna kind of ask us a lot of questions. We know you guys are gonna be there.
The chat's the real MVP. I say that 100%.
And it just
happened.
The devil, yeah, Jimmy J, of course. Who else? Jimmy J. We get to. You know what's funny about Jimmy J doing it? It's like we've been talking to him the whole time anyway. So
hey, he's the real one. When I said he's the real
is.
MVP, Jimmy J is one of those real MVPs. He knows that.
And he's already talking shit with his super chat too, which is funny. Like, how quickly do your minds change if they lose to the Knicks?
That's a good question. No, that's a good question for me.
But for me, not much, because their next two games are at home against the Raptors and then road against the Rockets. Those are two easy wins to me, easily.
KJ, I think they lose to the Knicks. I think that is it's make or break. No. It's not even close to that. Like my mind doesn't truly change. But if I'm being completely honest with you and Jimmy J right now and the rest of the chat, I am accounting for a win opening night. You know what I mean? So like if they go to lose, then all of a sudden it's sort of like whoa, take a step back. Is there something that we're not seeing here? So I think Jimmy J, I think it's a good question. I think it's like a as weird as it sounds, opening night wake up call.
I mean, Jimmy J, I'll tell you what, since you donated the 5, I'll let you dictate this. If the Celtics are worse than 4-2 through their first 6 games, I'll eat something of Jimmy J's choice. Whatever you want me to eat on the Celtics Power Hour, I will.
That come from?
I don't know, because I was thinking eat a shoe, but I don't really want to eat a shoe. So I'll just, whatever Jimmy J picks, I will eat live on the stream if the Celtics are worse.
Jimmy, you throw
than
money at
4-2.
KJ, this guy starts doing wild things.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's no way. Look, the Knicks one could go either way. The Knicks are a good team, fine. But Raptors and Rockets, those are 2 wins guaranteed. The Hornets, I'm sorry, I don't believe that much in the Hornets. Like, I'm not a Hornets guy here. Like, Gordon Hayward.
So you're saying if they start 4-2 or worse than 4-2?
Yeah, if they're 3-3, then I'll there's no way. And after that, so okay, let's say they lose to the Knicks. Again, they're going to beat the Raptors and Rockets. Okay, they have the Hornets after that. I think they're going to win that game. Let's say they don't. They got 2 games against the Wizards after that. Like, and I know people mention the Wizards as a sleeper. Like, I'm not buying it. I don't love Russell Westbrook. I would have been more scared of them if they still had Russell Westbrook. Like, oh my gosh, no, it's Kyle Kuzma. Oh no, Kyle Kuzma's coming in. No, back-to-back games against Kyle Kuzma. Like, I don't. They're not gonna go be worse than that.
Hey, Dinwiddie.
So, what is this? Is this what he wants me to? What is this? What are platinos? What are those? Can you look that up, Ev? I don't know what that is. But maybe it's some sort of spicy thing. I don't know. But anyway, point being, Celtics aren't going to fall worse than 4-2 this season. It's not going to happen. While Ev is looking that up, trying to figure out. I'll put some of the more chats up.
Are they?
Andrew's saying Knicks 110, Celtics 90. I'm not sure about that one.
This can't be right. I'm looking it up. I'm seeing like cooked bananas or something. Jimmy Day's plantains. He's saying plantains.
Oh, plantains. Okay, I see. I got you. All right, plantains. I'll eat plantains live on the stream. Watch Kuzma drop 50 on us because we're trashing him. Would be on brand since Scrub always became MJ against us. Yeah, who knows? Maybe
I could totally see that.
Maybe I just jinxed that. Andrew saying Wizards have Dinwiddie now. Not a bad point. Dinwiddie's pretty good, but I still.
Yeah, I think he is good, and I know, and that's going to be a good one. I know Andrew is very involved in the comments, and Andrew is a Knicks fan. I assume he's a Knicks fan because he's big time on the Knicks. I wouldn't overlook Dinwiddie. Like, I think Dinwiddie, he's the type of guy people forget about because he was injured. So yeah, he can come back and maybe not be what he was, type of thing, right? But that is like a decent. I think there's no I guess there's no coincidence that all of a sudden you get KCP, you get Dinwiddie, you get did they get Montrezl Harrell? I don't know, maybe, right? The Warriors, whatever, they get him. They get Kuzma. Like, all of a sudden, it's like you started to lessen the talk about Bradley Beal being gone. Like, I think that the Wizards did what they did to get better.
Jimmy J's trying to like set a new record himself on this stream. He just wants he just wants the record at this point.
He's one of the OGs
with another super chat. But I will say, because we did want to talk about other stuff too in this one of which is the roster spot, and somebody mentioned Jabari getting cut. I didn't know where the comment was now off the top of my head. I'll find it while we're talking about it. But I mean, we both talked last time we were on the show, like, yeah, Jabari's going to be 15th roster man. Like, no question about it. Yeah,
right?
That's going to be the guy. And they cut him. And that's kind of it. And, so what do you expect them to do with that spot? Avery Bradley was a thought for me, but now he's with the Lakers, back to the Lakers, so he's out. But there are some legitimate NBA names out there available, like Al-Farouq Aminu was cut today. I know they didn't necessarily want him, and, they traded him away, and it seemed like they didn't want him on the roster, but, like, Chris Dunn's out there if you want to, bring him back.
I have one name.
At this point.
And I don't want to give too much I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because a video will be coming out tomorrow on the YouTube channel, react to highlights and whatnot. Our usual thing, there's Celtics rumors, we react to highlights, and I give you my take. A couple days ago, the Clippers waived Harry Giles, whatever you want to call him. He's one of Tatum's best friends in the league. He was supposedly one of the best high school prospects going into college and whatnot, right? That's a name that I'll sum it up like this. If they don't go out and get someone like that, then I'm going to be very frustrated with the Jabari Parker move, because Jabari Parker, as much as people want to say he sucks at defense or anything like that, Jabari Parker is legitimately an NBA player. You know what I mean? Like, Jabari Parker belongs in the NBA, whether it's on the 15th spot of a team, seventh man of whatever it is. Jabari Parker's an NBA player. If the Celtics don't now fill that role with a true NBA player, I'm going to get a little bit frustrated because you had an NBA player that you could just easily flush into your 15th spot. So they got rid of him. So now they better figure out a way to get an NBA true talent into that spot, or I'm going to be kind of frustrated with it because we talked about it last week. Ryan Archie, Kakamau Macchiato, Garrison Matthews, like all these names that were competing with Jabari Parker, they're not even close to Jabari Parker's level. And maybe I'm pumping air in Jabari Parker's tires, but Jabari Parker's an NBA talent. They get rid of him, they better get an NBA talent with the 15th spot, because to me, that was a hook, line, and sinker. You had a layup to get a 15th roster spot that was an NBA talent. A lot of teams get a 15th spot, and the guy's never going to play or anything like that. The Celtics genuinely had a 15th guy already on the roster that could actually help them this season, and maybe that's me being too high on Jabari Parker, but they better get someone that is just as capable, I guess.
Well, hey, Ev, I know, Lan, I found it. Lan is speaking your language. What about Isaiah Thomas? I mean, that's the guy that has been the name that's been thrown around forever.
So hard. Like I would welcome that in the sense of emotional and theatrical reasons, right? Like, give me Isaiah Thomas, bring him back. I do think that, if he had any sort of even a 50% of what he contributed, I think that they could benefit from scoring off the bench with him. But I don't think that that's what they're lacking, I guess, right now. Like, I think that they need a taller wing / big man with that last spot. And I'd love to see IT back here, but to me, I don't think that it makes total sense. But to Lan's point, and I know Lan's out in another time zone. He's like 6 hours ahead of us, and he still tunes into the post games and everything like that. Like, talk about OGs of the stream and OGs of the channel. I will agree with Lan in the sense of, I have feelings too. I would repay the favor of Isaiah Thomas, even if it didn't make the Celtics better this year. That is sort of a bias of mine. Like, he gave everything. I would repay the favor, even if that's not. I don't think that's the best move they could do, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Jimmy J brings up a good point. Saying everybody thinks Jay Rich is no good, and we've kind of championed the cause of Jason Richardson, or Josh Richardson, I should say, saying that he's going to be good on the Celtics. He's going to have a good year.
So good.
But also bringing up the fact that the Celtics traded Moses Brown for him, and they could actually really use Moses Brown right now with the injuries they've had. I mean, temporarily. Like, if Robert Williams and Al Horford are going to miss this game, then yes, for this game. But I mean, for the whole season, you'd probably still rather have Josh Richardson. The point being that if hypothetically Moses Brown is someone you end up missing this year because of injuries or whatnot,
and Josh Richardson is not good type of thing.
Yeah, well, just that you better get something good from Josh Richardson if that's the case.
I mean, I was high on Moses. I was excited about Moses Brown. I'll say that, and as should have everyone. But the guy didn't play a dribble for us. He barely played any dribbles for the Thunder. We went out and got a legitimate NBA talent for him, so that trade didn't irk me as much as it did multiple people, but I also won't take away from the people that are like, well, no, guess what? I was only banking on the potential of Moses Brown. Like, yeah, no kidding. Then I can agree with you, because if you're going to bank on someone's potential, it was going to be him type of thing. But I think we're both high on, and I'm probably even, like, I still, as crazy as it is, I think Josh Richardson is going to be the third best scorer on this team. And that's like a hot I'm sticking to that until it's a fact that it's not going to happen. But I've said that all offseason. I do believe in him. I think that the one thing about Josh Richardson is that he's gotten better and better and better the more that we've seen of him. And that's all you can really ask out of the preseason of a guy that just joined the team. You know what I mean?
It could be a number of guys. Like, honestly, like, if it was Dennis Schroeder, wouldn't surprise me. If it was Aaron Nesmith, if it was Josh Richardson, if it was Peyton Pritchard, if it was Robert Williams, it wouldn't surprise me. It could be anybody could be the third best scorer on this team, really. I think that a lot of those guys could really have a great scoring season, so I'll give them that. We got our Knicks fan, Knicks troll, I should say, in the chat too, saying Celtics would have a lottery pick next year. How nice of Andrew to suggest the Knicks would trade their pick to the Celtics. How
I don't mind the Andrew comments as long as he does embody the role of the Knicks troll. He needs to know. Andrew, do you accept that role?
What a generous offer, no? That he's saying that the Knicks will give their pick to the Celtics so the Celtics can have a
So,
lottery pick. That's so
yeah,
kind of you,
that's
Andrew.
interesting. So the trade
Yeah.
deadline, the Celtics, the 3 seed, are gonna trade for the last seed Knicks.
You know what the Knicks will do is they'll trade their first pick to the Celtics and Kemba Walker to take Kemba Walker's contract. That'll be how it ends up working out. The Celtics will absorb Kemba Walker into the trade exception they created by trading Kemba Walker, and they will get him back from the Knicks for that pick. Makes a lot of sense, Andrew. Thank you for your insight.
I do
really
think
appreciate it.
I do think the Knicks are a good team, but I can't wait for opening night because I'm
I'll just say
penciling in the
this.
Celtics win.
I'll say this, Andrew. When the Celtics lose, or sorry, when the Knicks lose on opening night,
what are we doing here,
to the
KJ?
Celtics,
You can't respond to a troll and mess up like that.
When the Knicks lose to the Celtics on opening night, we better see you at Ev's post-game stream. You better be there. You better show up, because if you don't, after all offseason, and Ev, you've seen it, the entire offseason, he's come in and left the same comment.
Hey, I love Andrew. A comment.
It's the same thing. He always says this.
Andrew, it could be a comment as dumb as that, but a comment's a comment, and I love every single viewer.
I disagree. So, Andrew, when the Knicks lose, he'll be there. He said he'll be there. Stream. You better be there. All right. He says he'll be there. All right. I want to make sure. Evan Fournier got a silver medal in France and beat USA. Evan, who got the gold medal? Did someone on the Celtics get the gold medal, Evan? I can't remember. Did that happen? Was someone on
He is right about Fournier. Fournier did go off.
Fournier was nice. But
Fournier kind of cooked.
But was someone on the Celtics? Did they get a gold medal in that? I forget now.
I don't really remember. I
might have been Jason too. Birkin, of course. Who else? Romeo will lock Fournier up. Saying France choked. A lot of great comments. Again, guys, we can't get to them all, so we appreciate everybody coming out for this show. Ev, if you want to wrap anything up, as far as thoughts on the season, any lasting things you want to put out there ahead of the season opener, pretty much your last chance to do so, for all intents and purposes. I know you'll have a couple other things in the next couple of days, a couple other chances, but let's just set it here. What do you want your one message? Just deliver it very concisely. Message for the Celtics season, your expectations, wherever you want to go with it, and deliver it to the people.
So I guess to say concisely is that people that are using last year as a starting point for the Celtics team are so off base. That was the worst of the worst sort of scenario, and they were a 7th seed. So at least if things were to be even middle of the road last year, you're looking at a Celtics team that was like a 5th seed, right? For us Celtics fans and KJ, people like you and I that cover the Celtics, to say that this team is going to be a 4 seed or a 3 seed, that shouldn't be a crazy statement. But I see videos and I see other people that even have Celtics podcasts and whatnot like that saying that this team's going to be a 10 seed and whatnot because they lost top end talent and lost a coach, and that's usually takes it like. All that I put aside because people don't understand that we're not starting from seed 7 as of last year. Like, that was due to a lot of things that people could deem excuses, but they are, real reasons nonetheless. We are right now a floor 5th seed that, all of a sudden made moves in the offseason, got a new coach, culture shock, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown get better. You bring in new guys that are going to be better and better. I think that you are a floor 4 seed with the ambitions of being an easy 3 seed and competing with that 2 seed to possibly get to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's where my expectations are. If I were to say our floor and where I probably see us going is that 3 seed, maybe back and forth between 4, but I think that everyone, and I guess this isn't very concise like you asked for, so I apologize for that, KJ,
No,
but I think everyone should leave last year at the door the minute that opening tip happens tomorrow, or I guess, Wednesday night. So because it isn't a good indicator of where this team's starting from. The 7th seed is not where this team's starting from.
Look, there's plenty of valid excuses that I won't even talk about that, have already been talked about a ton, right? It's like the Celtics, COVID and all this other stuff that affected last season. Like, I'm not even going to talk about those because everybody's given those enough credit already. You're talking about the people that want to say the Celtics lost Kemba Walker and they lost Evan Fournier, right? That's what people are saying, is like they lost these 2 players that are really good, and so they should be worse. Okay? So at the trade deadline, the Celtics were 1 game out of the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. 1 game out. before they got Evan Fournier. I don't know when this was in relation to the trade line. March 21st, one game out of fourth place. That was with Kemba Walker missing, almost half the season at that point. So he wasn't there half the time. And Evan Fournier wasn't there at all. So yeah, they lost those two guys, but they were pretty good without them anyway. And they replaced them with real NBA players: Al Horford, Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, and there seems to be already a lot of internal improvement from Aaron Nesmith, and and Robert Williams should be healthier for more of the season. People forget how good they were when they started Robert Williams last year. It took them a while to do that.
Yep.
So once I hate to say once he's healthy, but I assume it's not going to take so long this time around. So once he's out there on the floor, they're going to be a really good team. They're a really good team when he's on the floor. So for all those reasons and the development they should see from the young guys, whether you want to say Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, whoever, Birkin, I don't want to say Romeo Langford. It's so overrated to talk about them losing these key players like Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier because they didn't have Evan Fournier last season for the majority of the time, and they were still the same team. Evan Fournier didn't make them better. I'm sorry to newsflash everybody. Evan Fournier didn't move the needle. Yeah, but he didn't end up moving the needle. So losing Evan Fournier should be a net zero, and losing Kemba Walker, it's kind of it's annoying, but you're losing a half a player because he was out there half the time. So that's what you lost. You lost half a player really that was making a difference for you, and that was it. It was Kemba, and Fournier wasn't doing that for you. They were just the same with him as they were without him, basically. So people forget how close they were to being that top 4 seed last year. People look at it and say they were the 7th seed, they were so terrible, all this stuff. If you looked at certain points during the season, it was that race between 4 to 7, 8 in the Eastern Conference was so tight all year. It's not like they were 5, 6, 7, 10 games out of that spot. So it's ridiculous to say that this team cannot be on an elite level. But I think that'll do it for this stream. I know that we just gave our sentiments for the season. Now move on to final word as far as just the show and thank yous and all that. Ev, I'll give you the floor if you want to shout out anybody. Of course, Jimmy J for doing the super chats. Big shouts to him.
Yeah, this is only our second time doing the Celtics Power Hour here. Luckily for you guys, we make time stop, and each time we've gone a little bit over an hour. So, what can I say? KJ and I are working overtime here, but I do appreciate everyone tuning in and the comments as well. And just for future reference, as you're tuning in, we do appreciate each and every time you guys super chat and all the support there. And, we get so many comments and we are trying to get to them as naturally and as organically and as sort of quickly as possible. But if you guys do in future episodes feel the need that you want to see your chat answered and get a shout out on the show and become part of the show, we do appreciate that super chat because it's kind of what keeps the gears churning back here. It definitely helps more than you guys know. Same thing with subscribing and liking. KJ and I will talk about the Celtics all day long, but you guys watching and listening kind of make it and give it purpose. You know what I mean? So I can't thank anyone enough that just tunes in for 1 minute or the entire show. And I genuinely mean that. It's so cliche, but I do mean that.
And honestly, we try to get, if we could, we'd get to all the comments. We would just talk about, and I know Ev usually tries to on the post-game streams, but it's just, it's as it gets bigger, it's getting tougher. We're always going to show love to the regulars. I know Phil, we haven't talked about a lot today, but we see him in here at the end, saying Vegas isn't always right and saying it about the Celtics and everything like that, which is a good point. So, we're always going to give love to the regulars that always come in if we can. But yeah, it is getting harder. And if you do the super chat, then obviously we're going to appreciate it. And we're going to be ecstatic, and we're going to talk you up as much as we talked up.
And I think I love the fact. I think most OGs, I'm so appreciative of the names we recognize. Most of them have, whether it's my post game show or your Patriots post game show or this show, it's they have sort of shown love with the super chats, and that's crazy to me because we don't necessarily ask it. It's such a easy way to support for you guys watching, but I feel like to me and to KJ, you guys don't realize how much that means to us. I know that's gushy and sentimental, but it's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be doing this throughout the season, guys. And the next one, be sure to tune into it. Have notifications on because we're scheduling these kind of based on where the Celtics have breaks in the schedule, so we can have a good day to talk about it. Phil saying Tatum dropping 50 Wednesday night. I think that's a good way
Let's
to end
go.
it. Yeah, again, like we appreciate you guys coming out and we're having fun doing this, and the numbers have been good so far, and I think we're both enjoying ourselves with the Celtics Power Hour. So we'll keep it going as long as you guys want us to keep it going.
Yes, sir.
And thank you guys for coming out, and we'll see you next time.
All right, peace out.